So here's the thing. A number of years ago, someone came up with the idea of, instead of running a lavalier cable through your shirt, we should just put the mic in a tiny transmitter, run it over Wi-Fi, and call it a day. And that was a pretty risky move, because who wants a giant transmitter just dangling off of your shirt? Now, this is actually the Blink 500 Pro from Saramonic, which is now discontinued, but I've been using for a couple years quite happily. Now, normally I do use a lavalier. This one is compatible with a lavalier microphone, but for today's video I thought I'd try something a little bit different. Now, in the past couple years, the market for these has just absolutely exploded. Almost every company in the creator space is making their own version of these tiny clip-on mics. So why are these so popular? Well, they're wireless. You don't have to deal with cables down your shirt, and if you're a solo creator doing man-on-the-street interviews, or you're on a trade show floor or something, you don't have to worry about aiming a shotgun mic in the right direction. Plus, these are reasonably sound isolating, so it's going to help a lot if you're in a noisy situation. Now, like I said, almost every brand is coming up with their own version of these clip-on mics, so competition is really heating up. So for a company like Saramonic, it's important to innovate and come up with new ideas, new features, new looks, and they came up with this patented design called the BlinkMe B2. And this is what it looks like. Pretty strange. Now, it does come in a lovely case with a handful of accessories, which we'll get to in a moment. But first, let's talk about some of the standout features and what I like about this design. So first, these little round guys on either side are actually the microphones themselves, and they're held on to the receiver body by magnets. One of the benefits of that is, of course, keeping everything together in a nice tidy package, but the transmitter and the receivers actually share battery. So if one of your transmitters is running low on battery, just pop it back onto the receiver and you're charging. Now, the next feature might not seem like a terribly significant one, but it's actually incredibly convenient. Auto on. So anytime you remove one of the transmitters, it's going to auto power on, and so is the receiver. And these things boot up extremely fast. Now, as the generations have progressed with these wireless microphones, companies have been adding other features like internal audio recording, and Saramonic has you covered there. So there are two different modes of audio recording with up to 24 hours of recording capability built in. So there's no need to pop a micro SD or an SD card in or out of this thing. Now, there are several different modes of recording, my favorite being the safety recording, which records at -6 dB, just in case there's some distortion. And to get at those files, you plug in the whole unit to USB on your computer and it'll mount. It's also important to note that the iOS version of the app cannot read from the unit's memory, but the Android app can. Not really sure why that is. Hopefully that's something they can fix in the future. Speaking of things that they can fix in the future, and again, maybe this is just a bug with the iPhone app, but after pairing the unit to my phone, which was fairly simple to do, I maybe had to push 2 buttons to pair it. I went to the audio recording part of the app and the video recording part of the app, and it told me I could not switch the input from internal recording to my microphone. You do have to physically plug in your transmitter to your iPhone or iPad. And speaking of phones, if we take a look at the accessories, this does come with a nice little spring-loaded phone holder, which has a thread on the bottom if you want to put it on like a Gorilla Pod or a selfie stick or something like that. And the top has a nice little cold shoe. Now, what do you use the cold shoe for? Well, of course, the receiver. And if we look at the accessories, you can see that there is a magnetic base with a cold shoe mount. Now, the cold shoe mount is also threaded if you want to mount your receiver onto something else, but this just screws on like so. The receiver just snaps on top like that, and your phone clamps on. Ta-da! Very nice. So really the only useful part of the app for me was the ability to change the wallpaper on the transmitters. At least that's what I thought. See, whenever I would use any of the built-in wallpapers, they seem to stay on screen even when it's cycled power on and off. But whenever I apply a custom wallpaper and cycle the power on and off, it disappears. Not terribly convenient. So as for my review of the app, well, it's kind of useless in my opinion. It even froze up a couple times when I was trying to load custom wallpapers. So play with it, but don't expect to get a lot out of it. Now earlier I was talking about how why would someone want a transmitter flapping around on your clothes, especially when it's on like a t-shirt or something that's just kind of flop over like this. Well, that's the brilliant thing about the magnetic system. While yes, they do have magnetic backs with clips on them, they also have these little magnetic hockey pucks, which means that you can run it up your shirt and boom, you can put this mic wherever you want. And that is pretty stinking cool. Now the weight of the thing is gonna pull down on your shirt a little bit, but for the most part, it's not going to do anything weird to your collar like this is. And between the little magnetic hockey pucks and the clip, you can put this thing pretty much anywhere. Now that I finally have one of these things clipped on, let's talk about noise reduction. So for me, I usually do all my noise reduction in software when I'm editing my footage. But for a lot of people, especially those who are streaming or just recording on their phone, that's not something you want to do. That's where this handy little noise reduction button comes in. Yep, one button noise reduction. They've made it really simple, but let's stop talking about it and test it out. All right, so I've got a ceiling fan running. I've got the BlinkMe B2 on exclusively. I've turned off the other mics. We're gonna see how well this noise reduction works. But before I do, I'm also gonna turn on the internal recording to see what the difference is between the audio recorded on my camera and the audio internally recorded, because it could be very different. And one of the cool things about this mic system is that a lot of the settings that normally would just be on the receiver can be adjusted through the touchscreen on these transmitters. So for instance, I'm going to go to onboard recording. I'm going to turn auto recording on. Those are our recording options. I'm going to turn record protection on. I'm going to turn auto recording on. And I'm going to turn our bit depth up from 16-bit to 24-bit. Now I don't think it's going to start recording until after I cycle the power on these, so I'm just going to swipe down on the menu there and hit the record button, so we should be good now. Alright, we'll clip this sucker back on, and we'll start with noise reduction off. And I'm just going to make a little bit of noise. And this is me talking while making noise. And the ceiling fan is on. And now let's turn the noise reduction on. And now let's do that again. This is noise, and this is me talking with noise. So in a second, I'm going to turn on some real-world sounds, maybe some crowds, maybe some traffic, and we'll see how that sounds. Alright, so now I'm playing some crowd noise, and this is with the noise reduction off. So now let's turn it on and see what it sounds like. Alright, now that's with the noise reduction on, so you can see kind of what it would be like if you're using these at a convention center or something. You're on the showroom floor, maybe you're doing man on the street kind of stuff, and there's traffic going by, and you want to cut some of that noise in camera. So one really cool feature that I almost forgot to mention was that you can capture on two devices at once. So you can plug this thing into your phone via USB and record using the app, and you can use the audio cable to record on your camera. All right, so a little bit of a costume change. We're outside We got a little bit of a breeze. I don't know if you can hear it blowing across the mic, but we're gonna try out our little puff ball. So I'm just gonna pop the mic off, and of course, be sure that when you're using these magnetic backs, be sure to catch it, otherwise it'll fall down your shirt. Anyway, so this guy just fits on and twists, and there you have it. We'll pop this back on. And that should give you a little wind buffering, if you will. How's that? My camera guy says it's good. So anyway, I think this is a great option if you're a content creator and you don't want to deal with cables, or you're doing man on the street interviews. It's super easy to just clip on to a shirt if you use the magnetic clip mount for these. It's a lot less invasive than trying to thread a cable down someone's shirt, and it's a lot less sloppy than just leaving the cable hanging. But it's great at isolating sound. I think in the studio it did a really good job of canceling out noise, that background noise, with that built-in noise reduction button. The screen itself is really responsive. I think the screen on the receiver itself is a little bit small to adjust settings with. So if the receiver was actually a tiny bit bigger, that wouldn't be a bad thing. The other thing I will say is the app itself is really kind of not good, we'll say. It needs a lot of work. So that is the big downside for me. I wish the app was a little bit more robust, a little bit more responsive. It froze up quite a few times when I was trying to use it. The only useful thing I really got out of it anyway was being able to change the screen on the touchscreen itself. And I'm probably not going to use that. I'm probably going to leave this black all the time. But if you want to put a logo on there, make this, you know, more of like a pin when you're doing your videos. I mean, that's pretty cool. Anyway, at the price, it's actually a pretty good mic. I think it's worth the buy. If you want to check it out for yourself, click the link in the description below, and anytime you use one of my links to make a purchase, yeah, help support the channel. Tell me about this film you just finished.
Me and a good friend of mine, TJ Montgomery, we co-directed a little film that we shot on Super 8 called A Cabin in the Woods, but not that cabin nor those woods. And think of it more of like a parody 80s horror movie where we're leaning into the comedic elements, yet we still wanted to have a lot of that blood, gore, graphic violence, a lot of things that we're still keeping secret in terms of the story.
So is it kind of like an Evil Dead kind of thing? Or?
Yes, think Evil Dead and Scream combined.
Nice. So where are people going to be able to see it?
They will be able to see it at Watermelon Man Media on YouTube. No release date yet, but we will be dropping a teaser here within the next month or so.
All right, so, very cool.
Yes.
We'll drop a link in the description where you can find that.
Epic. Poggers.